One, two,
Shalom,
three.
shalom, family. Welcome to the D.C.B channel once again. My name is Uzziah Lewy. I'm one of the teachers of Congregation Bay D.C.B, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Thanking the Most High God, King of the universe, for all things and everything, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Thanking the Most High God for the leadership at Bay D.C.B, the brothers and sisters, and thanking the Most High God for Kobe Yisrael scattered in the four corners of the earth. We're here once again, as we do on a weekly basis, to bring you the past week's Sidra or Parasha, which will be located in the book of Leviticus, Leviticus, in the book of Leviticus, and that portion being Shemini, which means eighth. And like we always do, and every week, I will introduce to you the teacher of that portion, which will be one of my teachers, even Nasik, Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Baruch Hashem, doing well. First of all, I'd like to give praises to the Supreme Attorney of the universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and do respect the platform on Chief Prince Yeriel, and also the host, one of the hardest working guys I know in Yisrael, Chief Uzel, and to the princes, Chief, the Kohanim, the rabbinate, and also the Marine, and brothers and sisters out there, and visitors that may be visiting this channel. I greet you in the tongue of our forefathers, Shalom Aleichem, and early Shabbat Shalom. Peace be unto you, and a peaceful Shabbat. I'd like to, first of all, say, Adonai Septai Titaku Fi Yagi, Tilateka, O Lord, that my lips, my mouth should declare that praise. I'll be sharing some insights, but I'd like to address some things I left last time. I left with a theoretical question, but before I deal with the theoretical question, I'd like to address, I think one of the, I think his brother made a comment, I think, in reference to a question whether we should observe the holy days while we out, while we're not in the land. And those days, when I was mentioned earlier and in the past, that these are appointed seasons, and the appointed seasons are all mentioned in the book of Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, which anybody that's been following D.C.B channel and other Israelite channel was abreast of that. Those days are appointed, so we don't select them. And something that you select, you could have the option of saying that, okay, I'm gonna do it this time, or I'm gonna cancel out. It's like this program I'm doing now. If I've selected to do a review or highlight some insights to the previous Sidra. I could say, okay, this week I have a lot of things I'm doing. Our chief got a lot of things he's doing, so I could say, well, we're gonna postpone it for this week or whatever the case is. That's a selection. That's my choice or his choice in that area. But when it comes down to the appointed times that we observe, that's mentioned in the scriptures in Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, that is designated by the Creator. And it's not only confined to us being in the land. A day affects you wherever you're at on the planet. And so therefore, we're in all your dwellings, because a day comes no matter where you at. You don't send it, and you can't postpone it. Now, what we have is also another question that was presented was if the Israelite women's or could wear, the Muslim ones wear the headpiece, and would that be a violation? And it's not a violation if a woman cover her head. It's not a violation. Now, I'm familiar with certain teachings that they have in the New Testaments about a woman, keeping their head covered and stuff of that nature. But I like to say this, that it's not a violation if she cover her head and is not a violation according to Israelite law that's written in the scriptures, other than perhaps maybe New Testament, where she don't cover her head. All right, so that's like I said, and in some places they might have a rule, and you can have a house rule based on something. Maybe just say just the rules that we have here. Also, now I like to further address. I left a theoretical question while we were dealing with a lot of sacrifices before we get into the Sidra Shemini, which means the eighth, which be coming from Leviticus, the 9th chapter, and concluding with the 11th chapter of Leviticus. The last week I left a theoretical question on the table. In theory, could we had ever offered up the Passover when the temple was not standing? And then I gave different dimensions in reference to sacrifices. I said, you have different sacrifices. I mentioned in the first part of Leviticus, the procedure that's called YAH. They had 5 that was described. They had some more that was broken down too. And you have, and to keep it simple, you have sacrifices that are appointed by time, designated by time. Hence, and I gave examples of it. The daily sacrifice that you offer, the priest got to offer up, which is, the burnt offerings and the different things on each day, the different sacrifices that's included on the Shabbat, and those appointed times that's mentioned in Leviticus, that you read the enumeration of those sacrifices in the book of Numbers. Just for the sake of time, I like to just say Passover sacrifice is one of those appointed sacrifices because it's designated by time. Now, the difference between the daily sacrifices and the other appointed times, there are community sacrifices. They're done by the community at large, collectively. Passover, though it's an appointed sacrifice, it's done individually. When I say individually, by households. So when the priests offer up daily the sacrifices for all Israel, when you offer up sacrifices that's required for Shabbat, it's for all Israel. When you offer up for the other days, it's for all Israel. But when it comes to the Passover, it's the man in his household, and if his household is too small for the sacrifice, he can invite another, and another house could join to him. But that's an individual. Now, the daily offerings that's done as a community, it means that we all invested in it. Now, that is something that we can't do because as a community, we have to all say we had a share in it and to contribute exactly to one location, one spot. And, so that we cannot do. Now, and I said it was theoretically, I'm going to give an example. Because I know a lot of people, I even asked my son, I was pretty strict and everything. He said, I'm going to ask him the question. He gave me the answer very quickly. He said, oh, no, you can't do that. And I said, why, you answered too quick. He said, I already thought about it. I said, well, you thought about it very quick. And I said, it's a discussion that goes back thousands of years. It's not a discussion that I just come up with. All right. And one of the things that we didn't, if you had a priest, we know the priest got to be able to prove his lineage. He got to be able to prove his lineage to be a priest. That's what you need that for, to even begin to talk about, we're going to offer up any kind of sacrifice, all right, to the Creator. If he ain't a priest or prophet, but we know prophets we could check out, but I'm just saying this particular sacrifice. All right. 2, the priest cannot, be contaminated by the dead. Because if it's contaminated by the dead, then we don't have the red heifer ashes in the process to be able to clean them up. Neither is the one that's bringing the sacrifice for the slaughter of the Passover. He cannot be unclean by the dead as well. Okay, now, those 2 parameters we have. The next area, the temples were destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE. So now we had priests that was able to identify their lineage, that was functioning as priests. Now, if the priest that was functioning and living at that time did not become defiled by any dead body, because other issues, you could, you become clean, by time. But unclean by a dead body, where he don't have to be sprinkled and go through a purification, right? And he's living at that time. So, maybe, a year later, a few months later, because we figured we got the idea that we got the date around the 5th of Av. So the 5th month was the temple destroyed around 70 CE. So you figure 7 months later, if you can able to hold out that long, 7 months, without being defiled by any dead body, and an individual also that's going to bring the sacrifice had not been defiled by any dead body, and they know the location of the altar, because it's about the place and not the altar itself. Because we read in Exodus 20th chapter, if you build me an altar of earth, it should not be built of hewn stone. So with those parameters existing, that he just get natural stones and set them in place. And the priest, it was never defiled by the dead at this particular time. He's not unclean by the dead. And the one that's bringing the sacrifice not unclean by the dead, and no other uncleanness, of course, at the time. Then theoretically, at the location, which was Jerusalem, at the spot where the altar was, because it says the place that the Lord shall choose, theoretically, they could have offered up the sacrifice then, because it's an individual thing. It's not a community thing. So that was why I put that question there, because that's a unique time appointed offering that is done by the individual, but it's not a community offering. So any comments on that, just directed to me, in that area in the comments. Now, I'm going to speak about this particular sidra here, Shemini. Now, Shemini being 8 in Hebrew, and we know that as we talk about the 8th, we look at that Aaron and his sons were being consecrated for 7 days, and in order to become and be able to function as a priest. On the 8th day, they're clean. So since the 8th day arrived, they started to function on this particular time. So now I'm gonna start from the there's a lot of stuff that's going on here. We have I'm gonna give you some highlights overall, because I know I'm not gonna cover everything as usual, but what we have in there for Leviticus, the 9th chapter, first verse, going to the 11th chapter, 47th verse, that whole chapter. So Moses instructs Aaron and his sons concerning offerings for atonement of sin. And then Nadab and Abihu brings an unauthorized fire offering of their own, and God punishes them with death. And God tells Moses and Aaron which foods, or the people at large, which foods are permitted and forbidden to be eaten. So that's pretty much what this whole thing is about. But it's a lot of, I like to say, unique things that's going on here that happen to be like a first. And so I'm gonna go in from the Leviticus, start from the beginning, and I like to highlight some things here. So we're going to the Leviticus, the 9th chapter, and the first verse. Yes.
Leviticus chapter 9, verse 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And it came to pass on the 8th day that Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. And he said unto Aaron, take thee a bull calf for a sin offering, and a ram for a burnt offering without blemish, and offer them before Yehovah. And unto the children of Israel thou shalt speak, saying, take ye a he-goat for a sin offering, and a calf, and a lamb both of the first year, without blemish, for a burnt offering, and an ox and a ram for peace offerings, to sacrifice before Yehovah, and a meal offering mingled with oil, for today Yehovah appeareth unto you.
Right there. Now, that last thing that Chief had read, it says, today the Lord appears unto you. Now, it's always, some people have we have the exact date the tabernacle was erected. We find that in the book of Numbers, that the exact date that the actual, we find that the tabernacle was erected on Rosh Chodesh, the month of Abib, which the month we just passed through already. So some believe that Aaron and his sons was started to be sanctified from the beginning of Rosh Chodesh of the month of Abib, which is, the first month of the Hebrew calendar, the first day of the Hebrew calendar. And this is happened to be the 8th day, which will be the 8th of Abib. But they started prior to that, and I will get back to it and try to support my viewpoint a little bit more. But just for the sake of time, all this is being taken place. Aaron's completion and the son's completion is on Rosh Chodesh, which is the first day of Abib. The same day, and we get back to that as we go. All right. Now also the offerings. Aaron bringing a bull offering first, and then then a goat. And the people bringing a goat, and then then later on they bring some oxen. Now, a burnt offering is usually for sins of thought. All right. A sin offering is usually for stuff you actually did. So when and thoughts that people really can't control all the things they think about, but you are responsible for controlling what you do. So, and that's the way the Creator look at, and hold you responsible for it. So you figure Aaron, they have a lot of things about Aaron only thought about, his sin, bringing a burnt offering was was that his sin offering was that of a bull, was because he only thought. He didn't actually take the action on it. He did that to delay people, but his action was in the actuality and making the calf. The people didn't actually make the calf, but they thought about it. And there's another viewpoint on it as well, that the people bringing up the goat for a sin offering is supposed to be reminiscent of they held responsibility for selling Joseph into Egypt. That's just some comments on there. But we're going to go ahead on a little bit further. But the last thing he read was the Lord will appear unto you this day. And that's an important point to support the Rosh Chodesh. All right. Just a little bit more.
And they brought that which Moses commanded before the tent of meeting, and all the congregation drew near and stood before Yehovah. And Moses said, this is the thing which Yehovah commanded that ye should do, that the glory of Yehovah may appear before you.
Pay attention to that verse as well. Go ahead.
And Moses said unto Aaron, draw near unto the altar and offer thy sin offering and thy burnt offering, and make atonement for thyself and for the people, and present the offering of the people, and make atonement for them, as Yehovah commanded.
Okay. Now, we're going to skip on down. So I'll just give you a little insight what he's supposed to be doing. We're going to skip on down to the 23rd of the same chapter, 23rd verse.
You want me to read it?
Yes.
And Moses and Aaron went into the tent of meeting and came out and blessed the people, and the glory of Yehovah appeared unto all the people. And they came forth fire from before Yehovah, and consumed upon the altar the burnt offering and the fat. And when all the people saw it, they shouted and fell on their faces.
Okay. Hence, this is the day and the only time that fire came down from heaven and consume the altar. I mean, the burnt offerings that was on the altar, you know, and that's a sign that the Creator appeared unto them at this particular time. All the days of Aaron's preparation was just preparation. And hence, as some other things I would bring out as we read just a little bit more. All right, so we're going to skip on down. You know, and he blessed the people, of course. All right, and we know fire came down. And this is a marvel thing. This is the first time you read about fire coming down from heaven. All right, now we're in the 10th chapter.
Chapter 10, verse
Right.
1. And Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took each of them his censer, and put fire therein, and laid incense thereon, and offered strange fire before Yahweh, which he had not commanded them. And there came forth fire from before Yahweh, and devoured them, and they died before Yahweh. And Moses said unto Aaron, This is the thing that Yahweh spoke, saying, Through them that are nigh unto me I will be sanctified, and before all the people I will be glorified. And Aaron held his peace.
I'll hold right there. Now, what is more, you know, something to think about. This Rosh Kodesh, and you'll have to, when you read the dedication, each tribe had a day, which you're going to, you know, those that will read further in the book of Numbers, to bring a dedication offering. So Aaron and them is anointed on this Rosh Kodesh. I mean, they already, beginning to officiate. Excuse me, they're beginning to officiate on Rosh Kodesh of the month of Aviv. First time fire come down from the Creator and consume the offering on Rosh Kodesh. Also, now on the most joyous day of his life, his sons and his two oldest sons, Nadab and Abihu, decide to go forward and burn incense to bring strange fire. Now, what makes the fire strange is a lot of debate on what makes it strange. You know, we know fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering. But it never said the fire that consumed the offerings on the altar was extinguished yet. It just said it burned. And we know those that read thoroughly and remember one of the rules, one of the jobs of the priest is to make sure the fire goes not out at night. So the fire would last a while at its grand opening of the tabernacle out here in the wilderness on that brazen altar. And like I said before, one of the miracles is that you got an altar made of wood and overlaid with just a little grass, and yet that's not burnt up. You know, and which is you know, one of the strange miracles of that is in itself. So now, Moses told Aaron and his sons not to even mourn, and then notice some of the things that goes along with it. You know, keep going.
Verse 4. And Moses called Mishael and Elsaphon, the sons of Uzziel, the uncle of Aaron, and said unto them, Draw near, carry your brethren from before the sanctuary out of the camp. So they drew near and carried them in their tunics out of the camp, as Moses had said. And Moses said unto Aaron and unto Eleazar and unto Ithamar his sons, Let not the hair of your heads go loose, neither rend your clothes, that ye die not, and that he be not wroth with all the congregation. But let your brethren, the whole house of Israel, bewail the burning which Yahweh hath kindled.
Okay, all right there. Oh, no, one more verse. I mean, we might as well finish up the verse.
And ye shall not go out, from the door of the tent of meeting, lest ye die, for the anointing oil of Yahweh is upon you. And they did according to the words of Moses.
Moses, right, very important. According to the words of Moses. All right. Now, it's a lot of things that happen here that I like to bring up. One, when Moses told Aaron not to mourn, you know, and and that the Creator would be, sanctified by those that come near him. And Aaron, at the happiest day of his life, lost two of his eldest sons in the sight of all the people, and they know that God did it through fire. One, Aaron was Wayodom. That's the word, the Hebrew word, Wayodom, which means he was silent. Today, what we do, a moment of silence for somebody that passed. That's a custom that we tend to build at the time. Silent don't mean that you're doing nothing. Being silent is some action, but it's the action that is on another level. I think they call it in English stated verb. The state of being silent. It's more like a stated verb. But Aaron was silent. Some books translate it, he held his peace. All right. Now, but being silent don't mean you're doing nothing. And that's what I want to emphasize is that, he this is what people do when they say, oh, brother so-and-so passed or sister so-and-so passed in a tragic death. And we usually say that when a tragic happened, not when a person died naturally, but in tragedy, when somebody tragically died in an accident or tragically died in some violence, and you say, well, you held them in high esteem. They say, give me a moment of silence. It could be 5 seconds. It could be 1 minute. And they emphasize those things. And also now, what we also find out is that you're not supposed to rend your clothes. They told them not to rend it. So that means that it's a mourning right to tear your clothes. And even those that follow a rabbinic tradition, they might tear their clothes the length of a fist, but they don't say the length of a fist there. But they get a lot of their stuff from the prophets about how they mourn or pull their hair. And the Creator said, Moses said, that let the people be well and mourn for the kids. Now, that's a hard thing, but we got to constantly bear in mind what's going on this day. You got the inauguration of the completed of Aaron and his sons. You have the dedication of the tabernacle at this particular time, and this is the first day, and it's also a Rosh Chodesh, a new moon, and all this is going on in this one day, which is really, really unique. And we're going. They say, well, they always have a question. One of the things they say that they violate, because the word otam, that's a Hebrew word, spelled aleph with a cholam and a tav and a mem. They're gonna use the word otam without the cholam. We call it in Hebrew cholam malay, which means a full cholam. We could use it without that wall, which is the 6th letter. And so rabbinic traditions say they violated 6 things. Now I'm just share some of the 6 things. But before I go with I just share some of this and then I go in another area as well. So some of the 6 things I wrote down just so I won't forget them as I'm moving kind of swiftly. Well, one, everybody says strange fire. We're not clear what makes it strange from the text. All right. And ruling on a legal matter, because when you ruling on a legal matter, because anytime you got to do something concerning the Creator, you got to do it according to his rules and regulation, and that's how you sum it up to be. And then we look at these, we know from the history, they wasn't married and never had children. So now, there's always a comment about they might have thought themselves too important to be married. No woman's good enough for them. And hence, the fruitful and multiplication of children they didn't have at this particular time. So we know we didn't have no children, and we know they wasn't married. So even in their death, at least they didn't leave a widow behind or orphan behind. And then, of course, they, some say some consider that they might have been inebriated, a little tipsy. We don't know. We only assume for what follows behind, which is given to Aharon. But we don't know whether it was inebriated or not. We know it's a celebration going on. So hence, caution, if you're drinking, you get a little tipsy, you will into teeter-totter. And when it comes to precision with the Creator, you got to have sharpness and preciseness in that matter. So it goes on attaining prestige, So to be able to offer up the census, to be able to burn incense should have been their father's job, not their job. The high priest is the one that tends to that particular duty. But they decide to go forward in that jubilation time to bring up incense. But the incense on that golden altar supposed to have been their father's job, not necessarily theirs. So, and then finally, not asking for permission. So they didn't ask whether it's all right to do certain things. Sometimes we take up upon ourselves to do certain things without clearing it with an authority, an authority figure. So, and the Creator is the authority figure in this case, because this is a place that He wanted us to build so He could dwell amongst us. So if He didn't specify it, then anything else would have been a problem. But another thing I'd like to bring out, that when the fire came down and consumed them, we know with incense in their hand and fire in their hand, you had to be close enough to go inside the Mishkan. There's always a question that the people seen that fire came out from the Creator and consumed, and it destroyed them. And when it destroyed them, what happens is that they didn't die and fall, their bodies didn't fall inside the Mishkan itself, which is the holy. And beyond that is where the ark is, the Holy of Holies. So the altar incense is in the holy area. Their bodies were not there, or else their cousins, Mishael and Elzaphan, would not be able to retrieve that body. And it would defile the Mishkan on that very day of its dedication, when it was already dedicated and sanctified that particular day. There's a lot went on in this particular day. And I got to keep, I must emphasize a lot, that a lot went on that particular day. So one theory I used to teach, and it's just me, that other people might have other viewpoints, that when I used to teach this particular portion, how, were dying, I said fire came out while they was inside, shot them outside, and then people could see the fire from the Creator shooting them outside, and they drop in the courtyard. And so everybody knows it's almost like, when they was dead, only the Creator know the exact moment of a person deceased. And then, and so we might say they was dead already, before they came out. But the Creator knows exactly when a person actually leave this world. And when He sent them, fire came out from the Creator, and evidently tossed their bodies outside in the courtyard, where His cousins, who's allowed to be in the courtyard, could retrieve the body. Also, the thing was that their tunics were consumed, so it's already understood that, if the clothing wasn't burned, that their body still was intact. So one of the areas we read about is that when when one of the capital punishments that we read about, the 4 deaths, burning, stoning, hanging, decapitation. According to tradition, if a person was going to be burnt and not burnt to a crisp like cremation, because we didn't do cremation, that they would pour lead down their throat and kill them. And that a lot of ancient people did the same thing, pour lead down the individual's throat that's going to receive the death penalty of burning, and their body still be intact, though that lead kills them instantly. So that's when the Creator killed Nadab and Abihu, that their bodies being intact because they buried them out within in a clean, outside the camp. So you don't bury the clothes outside the camp, priestly garments. You bury the body outside the camp. So that's the difference. Because we know the law for, but if a person be defiled by the dead, what they got to do, and then whatever they have on. All right. So another point I like to bring out as we go forward in this particular portion here, that it was 6 times, 12 times fire came from the Creator, 12 times within the Tanakh. 6 times for good, 6 times for punishment. All right. So I'd rather deal with the good parts first. So the first time we read about, coming down, I wrote it down so I won't forget them, as I'm moving a little bit fast in this here portion. All right. First time we read about it is naturally the Mishkan itself, when the sacrifices was burned by the Creator. That's the first time. Fire come down from God that we read about, comes down from God from good. Most people think it was Sodom and Gomorrah, but Sodom and Gomorrah is fire and brimstone, and in Egypt, fire and hail. But here's the first time for good, and read about just plain fire. And every spot that I'm going to talk about is only the fire itself coming from the Creator for a specific reason of being either good or being bad. So you're gonna have 6 for good come from God, and 6 for evil come from the Creator. All right. So now that's the second time something happened for good. We know in the book of Judges with Gideon, when Gideon offered the sacrifice and stuff like that there, and fire came up through the stone that come out from the Creator. Next one we read about is with Samson's father, Manoah, when he offered up and fire come out from the stone. Then read about another time when David, during the plague, that supposed to plug when he tried to number the people and the plague came out, that fire came from the Creator and consumed his grain offering that David had brought up. So that was for good, for the good of the people, to stop the plague when the people was being plagued in David's time. And then we also know that fire came out for good with Elijah when he challenged the prophets of Baal, and the fire came down from heaven and consumed the sacrifices there. Now let's deal with the ones that came for bad, for evil. All right, Nadab and Abihu. That fire there was consuming them. All right, that's the first time we find out. Then the next time we read about fire coming out is during Korach's time in the book of Numbers, when those 250 princes tried to bring up offerings, an instant offering, and fire came from the Creator and consumed them. All right, so that time we read about that as well. All right. I left out. I'm sorry. I skipped one. I skipped the guy. I could skip Shlomo Hamelech for good when the fire came down in the Beit Hamikdash. I forgot. So that was the 6th time. So just in case people was counting, I left out Shlomo Hamelech when the temple was erected. All right, for good. Then when we look at the book of Job, said fire came out from the Lord, and because and destroyed it's people and stuff like that. There, some of his property, his personal property. All right. So we read about fire in the book of Job coming from the Creator, and destroying something. All right. Then twice with Elijah. So now Elijah's dealing with fire 3 times, 1 for good, 2 times for rough situation. The 2 times for the rough situation, when the people came from, they get him, asking him to come back when they sent for him. And he said, if I be a man of God, let fire come down from heaven and consume you. Then the second 50 and his captain, same thing. So we know about that as well. So let me see, Dali, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. So those the 6 times I mentioned, for evil. Nadab, Abihu, the quarrel with Moshe and Aaron, 250 guys. Book of Job, that's 3. Elijah, 4, 5. Oh, and Sennacherib, when the army of Sennacherib, the Assyrians, fire came and destroyed them in the book of I believe Chronicles of Kings. Sennacherib army was destroyed from fire. So 6 times we got 6 good instances where fire come from the Creator and destroy, divine fire come and destroy. 6 times we got for evil. I mean, for good, when the fire come down from the Creator and do something positive, and it 6 times come and do something negative. But these the time when it's just fire alone coming from a divine source, no other element in the book. So now we're gonna just go on just a little bit more in this particular thing. Let me see. The eighth verse.
Verse
of,
8.
10th chapter.
Verse 8 reads, and Yehudah spoke unto Aaron, saying, drink no wine nor strong drink. Thou know thy sons with thee when ye go into the tent of meeting, that ye die not. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations. And that ye may put difference between the holy and the common, and between the unclean and the clean, and that ye may teach the children of Israel all the statutes which Yehudah has spoken unto them by the hand of Moses.
Okay, right there, hold right there. All right. And because they mentioned about drinking here, that's one of the major things that people say they was drunk, intoxicated, and stuff like that. All right. But and it's a valid, conjecture, very valid conjecture. Like I said, sages and stuff had that same conclusion. They draw the same conclusion in that area. But what is important is that Aharon getting the divine word from the Creator in his most tragic moment. Now, normally when a person have death in the family, and you come around to see them and you're going to visit them, first thing, one of the customs is that you don't say anything. That's a traditional way when you come to visit a person that had a loss in the family. You don't say anything. You sit and wait for them to speak first. And you just go to see if they all right. Do you need something to eat? I brought some stuff. I brought some bread. I brought some juice or some yain, and so you can get over your sorrow. Because when a person lost a loved one, in actuality, when you say my condolences, what are you really saying? And what is it that you can possibly say that gonna make the individual feel better at that time? So I just wanted to have people bear that in mind, that when Job went through his thing, the people sat silent. The Creator, on a day of a festive day, the Creator already gave order through Moshe, not for him to mourn, let the people mourn. So that means they was worth mourning. So that means Nadab and Abihu wasn't wicked because the Creator slayed them, but they got close to the Creator, so close, but not in the right sanctity. And so their job was to get close to the Creator, get real close to the Creator. Hence, later on, when in the wilderness with the 250 princes, they wasn't looking to serve an other God. They wanted to be able to serve the Creator themselves. Creator of heaven and earth, the same one that Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, but they wasn't in the right condition of holiness for them to do it. It wasn't their job. So now we're gonna go just a little bit further into this here. I just want to go to 16th verse.
Verse 16 reads, and Moses diligently inquired for the goat of the sin offering, and behold, it was burnt. And he was angry with Eleazar and with Itamar, the sons of Aaron, that were left, saying, wherefore has ye not eaten the sin offering in the place of the sanctuary, seeing it is most holy, and he have given it you to bear the iniquity of the congregation, to make atonement for them before Yehovah.
All right, stop right there. That's good enough. All right. Now, before we go, I'm gonna skip the 18th verse pretty much, but I just want to I want to focus on this. Actually, he should have been addressing this to Aharon, the high priest, but he addressed it to his nephews and different. But the word that's used in Hebrew is interesting, and it's used the word darosh darash, which is a very interesting thing. That means Moses did some investigation, because the word darosh darash means to investigate, seek in diligently. So I'm doing some deep investigation, but and usually when you talk about like we have a term we call Midrash. Midrash is trying to fill in the gaps for some things that's missing that we don't see in Torah. So they talk about the Midrash, and hence you get these different legends and different viewpoints from Midrashim, but not necessarily law. So Moses was doing his diligent investigation and seeking to understand the missing part about why, what happened to the sin offering. He's seen it, and then I realized it's burnt. Why is it burnt and whole in its entirety? So now I found it. I know what you're supposed to do with it, but you ain't doing what you're supposed to do with it. And yet it's for a particular purpose. So he used the term madua. Now, madua, for most people that speak Hebrew, it means why. We say why, W-H-Y. But it's two ways we say why in Hebrew. Lama, which is more commonly used today in colloquial talk in a Sikha in Israel. They say lama, for why. Or madua. And you don't usually hear madua too tough these days. Well, at least around my circles. Anyway, lama is a preposition and a word. Two prepositions, basically. One's a suffix, a prefix of a preposition, and for two, and what. So lama means, or we could say for what. So it could be for what, literally, if we translate in English, to what or for what, for the word lama. But that's not the word here. The word they use here is madua. Madua is two words too. And in Hebrew, they call it a smiku in a construct state, or like we have in English, cannot, and we have the word can't, C-A-N''T, instead of cannot. So he used the word madua here. And the word madua comes from the word ma, which is what, which we already know, and yodea, for what you know, some knowledge. I need some insight. So Moses did some investigation. He found out what you did with what happened to the sin offering. Now I need some insight, some intelligent knowledge. When you say lama, you don't really have to explain it. It's like your child did something. You say, why you do that? You really don't look for no explanation when you're told not to do it. But when you want explanation, you use the term madua in Hebrew, which is 2 words from ma and Yehudah, madua. So now Moses wants some insight, and he addressed it to his nephews instead of his brother. So let's go just a little bit further. 19.
Verse 19, and it reads, and Aaron spoke to Moses, behold, this day have they offered their sin offering and their burnt offering before Yehovah, and there have befallen me such things as these. And if I had eaten the sin offering today, would it have been well-pleasing in the sight of Yehovah? And when Moses heard that, it was well-pleasing in his sight.
Okay. Whose sight it was well-pleasing? And Moses' sight. That's important to take note. Sometimes a law could be written, and then a circumstance might say, okay, we're going to relax the law. This is the first instance in Torah where you have an oral interpretation of something that's already written out what's supposed to be done. Aaron's the first one to come up with an oral explanation for doing something that's not literally written out, and will be seen on the surface contradictory to what is written. And it said, and Moses was pleased, and it was pleasing in his sight. That means Moses didn't even take it back to the Creator because he understood, Aaron's condition. And also the festivity was going on in that day, and Aaron and them didn't feel worthy enough. And that means that him nor his sons ate, that particular sacrifice. Now, hence, this day you had Yehudah from the tribe of Nachshon. The tribe of Yehudah and the prince Nachshon bringing this offering on the dedication on this day. We have also the dedication of the Tabernacle. You had a sin offering of the people, and you also have a new moon offering, which is a sin offering. The only offering that will be occurring in the future again, after this tabernacle was set up, will be a Rosh Kodesh offering, which is the sin offering of the people, which the blood don't go into the veil, into the holy place. That priest that'd be part of his due that he could do in another time, next month, because a new moon come up every month. So that's a sin offering that's gonna be coming again. But the dedication from these tribes, one time. The sin offering and the dedication of the temple, one time. All right. And this is the only one that was a different style sin offering that Moses went to elaborate on. That's how you know also that Rosh Kodesh was going on. And when you calculate each one bringing their offering on their day, and when the 12th one brought their offering, this is 12th of Aviv, and hence you round the Pesach in the second year, after the Exodus from Egypt. So you could do all that calculation on pretty much on your own. Now I just wanted to speak a little bit about Leviticus, the 11th chapter, just a little bit, not much on that, and then I'll be done. All right, so the dietary laws in Leviticus, as we referred to, is it doesn't really, it's not really a thing where it's gonna make you healthy. It's not about a health issue, and it's not about say just say some foods are just unfit to eat. But it's also, but it's mainly also teaching you how to have self-control on your appetite, because a lot of people don't have self-control on their appetite. So I know a lot of people will say, okay, eat what they say today, common word is kosher. All right, kosher itself is the Yiddish way of pronouncing it. The Hebrew way is pronounced kashir. And the style, and kashir means consented. what is permitted. All right. So when we say kosher, that means what is permitted, but it's the Yiddish way of pronouncing it, and the Hebrew word is kasher. And the category is called kashrut, all right, which is some of the same root for kasher, kav, resh, and shin. Kashin, like kav, shin, and resh, and then a tav on the end. They call it kashrut. All right, kashrut is what we say when we talk about ayid. Most people say ayid kashrut, the kosher, but that's from the rabbinic viewpoint as opposed to the literal Torah interpretation of what is clean. They use the word tameh or tahor. Tameh means unclean. Tahor means pure or clean. All right. So we're going to just go just a little bit in this, not much at all. All right. So I just want to highlight a couple of things. All right. You can start from the 11th chapter. And we only, a matter of fact, for those that's listening and want to find out, we have only 2 places that give you a dietary code. The book of Leviticus and the book of Deuteronomy, the 14th chapter. All right. And it emphasizes certain things in Deuteronomy as opposed to Leviticus. Now, I know Chief Ooze, this is one of his pet peeves here, dealing with the dietary law. So they do it. So those that might want to get more in depth into it, go to D.C.B channel and look up, the host right here, Chief Ooze, and Larry, and listen to his teachings on Leviticus, the 11th chapter. I'm just going to bring out a few things here to highlight some points. So you can begin.
Hallelujah. Leviticus chapter 11, verse 1. And Yehudah spoke unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying unto them, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, These are the living things which you may eat among the beasts that are on the earth. Whatsoever part of the hoof and is wholly cloven-footed, that cheweth the cud among the beasts, that may ye eat. Nevertheless, these shall ye not eat of them that only chew the cud, or of them that only part the hoof. The camel, because he cheweth the cud, but parteth not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. And the rock badger, because he cheweth the cud, but parteth not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. And the hare, because she cheweth the cud, but parteth not the hoof, she is unclean unto you. And the swine, because he parteth the hoof, and is cloven-footed, but cheweth not the cud, he is unclean unto you. Of their flesh ye shall not eat, and their carcass ye shall not touch. They are unclean unto you.
Okay, we're going to stop right there. All right, and I'm just going to give you an overview of the whole thing. Now, normally, the animals, it says that chew the cud, part of the hoof, and is cloven-footed. All right, so now, when it talks about chewing the cud, we was biologists that cut open and say, well, what is that? How we know somebody chewing the cud? So it used that the thing of chewing the cud, part of the hoof and the cloven foot. It got a split hoof and a joint. Now, and it gives examples, but you notice in the beginning it gives example of those animals that chew the cud. But the feet you can readily see. But when it comes down to the swine, it focuses on its feet and say, yeah, it looks very, very close. Everything fit on the outside. It's the inside that is a problem. And you notice the swine is the only animal on the planet that fit that description. Mm-hmm. Only one. And that part of the hoof and cloven-footed, and chewed the cud is pointed out more specifically for that particular animal. Because you can see the camel and feet is different. You can see the coonie and the hare feet is different. You can see a horse or whatever feet is different. So, but the inside, we don't have X-ray vision to see what's going on in the stomach, and whether they ruin it or not. But the pig, the swine, say, okay, I'm gonna point him out because he's the only one that fit this description. He got cloven foot, part of the hoof, but he don't chew the cud. That's the other white meat that everybody loves. I mean, and it's the most popular. But also, that's one meat. That's the only animal that's the most sacrificed next to the goat and the bull. And when I say goat, I'm saying sheep, sheep, goat, lamb, and the calf. I mean, the cow. The only other animal that's mostly widely sacrificed is the swine, and it's the only one that looks like something on the outside, but on the inside, it's no good. Mind you, some people, you know, he can hold up his foot and say, "Look here, what's wrong with me?" But and then it talks about other animals and creatures too, and birds. But I'm gonna deal with I'm gonna skip on down to about sea creatures. Those that swarm in the waters and the rivers. I'm gonna skip through that right quick, and and just speak on it. And those that want to study it, like I said, you could go through it, look it up. The Hebrew terms are sometimes misleading, and the way modern zoologists and different people categorize certain creatures, because they would say a whale is a mammal, but the book just say sea creatures, swarm, those that swarm or live in the waters, and the living creatures of the waters, the palms, the lakes, wherever they be at. That has fins and scales. Now, every fish that has have scales going to have a fin. But every fish that have a fin may not have a scale. So fins and scales. And one of the things is that doesn't matter whether you say the scales fall off, whatever the case is. I mean, if they had it one, that was okay. Also, the thing is too about I want to bring out just a couple of things in that area. Is that we know Muslims eat shrimp and lobsters, all right, and amongst Israelites and rabbinic culture, they don't eat shrimps and lobsters, and they and a lot of people talk about bottom feeders. It doesn't have anything to do whether they feed on the top of the water, whether they feed on the middle of the water, whether they bottom feeders or not. That doesn't have anything to do with it at all, because fish and sea creatures, it was the only thing that was never given a diet in Genesis. So you can have salmon that eating something that's unclean, a fish that you can't eat, but the salmon is still good. So now you cut the salmon up, he didn't get a chance to really digest that fish. All right, you just toss that whatever it is to the side, the salmon is still good. And you notice that sea creatures, fish, they don't talk about their blood. None of their blood, no sea creature blood ever goes on the altar. They don't talk about it, but they talk about fowl, and they talk about dealing with land creatures, but not with the sea creatures about blood. Dying of itself, land creatures. They don't worry about that's fowls, that's anything on the land. You pull up a net. When does fish die? How long has been dead? I don't know. I just need to know if he's spoiled, if you rank it. But that's all I need to know. Now, to get back to the thing, because a lot of Muslim brothers eat lobsters and shrimps, and they say they shells, and not, I discussed it with a few rabbis and stuff like that, and they they never define what a scale looked like. They never define. If it's overlay like armor. How big it is depends on the creature and what kind of fish it is. But so myself and where I grew up, we don't eat shrimp and lobster. But I'm just saying why Muslims might consider that okay, because they shells tend to be overland like scales. And so that's and I'm just bringing out their perspective on why they do that. But we in mainstream, We don't do the false Israelites. I know Israelites. I know anyway. You know, don't eat shrimp and lobsters, stuff like that. And it's not, and it don't have anything to do with that. Now, when it comes down to caviar, all right, fish eggs, you got to know whether it's kosher fish eggs, the fish that you can eat. I mean, when I say kosher, I mean the fishes that have been to scale, their eggs is not a prohibition. And then they do have what they call fish farms, where they actually have salmon farms and freshwater fish farms that they actually have that it's very expensive, and they don't eat everything like the wild fish eat. And especially if being in New York City, you could go to a strictly kosher fish market in New York City. But you go to any fish market though, and pick some fish up, that's all right. But some people are so strict in their diet that they only will buy fish from a kosher fish market because they have, a fish farm where they only breed certain fish. All right, so I figured I'd share that out. And also, which is interesting, poisonous creatures like snakes that we know we can't eat, that slithers around, it don't say, it doesn't say that makes you unclean because you have to kill them. And one of the greatest things to think about is from the Genesis story, um, with Eve and the serpent. And it says, you'll see, so bruises head, and the serpent should bite at this, attack the heel. So we get the most deadly blow. But anything that's most creatures that poisonous, that's deadly to you, you have to kill them if they're attacking you. And so, and it makes a big distinction when they talk about certain animals that you're subject to eat that you can't deal with their carcasses at all, and other animals you can't because of certain situations. Hence, the story about there's always a controversy about honey because we know we can't eat bees. Bees are not kosher, but you got locusts that's certain type of locusts that's kosher. The Limba tribe is one of the few people um, that still until this particular day that follow some kind of traditional rabbinic tradition eat locusts. And amongst Main Street Judaism, they say it's different types of locusts. That's certain ones is okay, certain ones are not okay. I don't know about it. I never had it, but I just figured I'd share that information with you. So I hope everybody got something out of what I said. And any comments, any questions about what I said, just put it on the comments. And any mistakes been my own, and not necessarily the D.C.B viewpoints, but I said any mistakes been my own. So any questions about what I said, you can direct it directly to me. And I say I have a good Shabbat. I really good Shabbat just coming in.
Hallelujah. Torah about Nasik.
All right.
And may the Most High God be with you and bless you.
All of us, Shalom.